In this project, we will be uploading our Unity projects into GitHub. For this, you'll need to have a GitHub account and GitHub Desktop installed and logged in to your GitHub account. So in this demo example, I have a plane and a cube and its materials set up in my Unity projects. First of all, to upload this project into my GitHub, I would go to github.com, open my account, and go to new repository option. So once you create a new repository option, you can give your repository name any relevant to your projects. For this one, I'll just be typing demo GitHub. You can add descriptions. I would put this a private so that others cannot access. You can add a README file to add in a description for your project. And this is the most important part. You need to add a git ignore file. They already have a sample of Unity, so you can just drop down menu, you can select Unity, and then you can also add a license file if you want, because your license will be like MID license, where your project could be used by others commercially or something like that. Once you've done that, create repository. This will create your repository in your github.com, which would be an origin for your files. We can talk about origin later on, but yeah, once you've done that, your github.com has the repository. Now the next step would be go to GitHub Desktop or desktop.github.com and then download your GitHub Desktop. Once you download your GitHub Desktop, go to your GitHub Desktop, make sure you're logged in using your github.com account. Go to File, Clone Repository. So you want to clone your repository that's in your github.com into your desktop. You can find your demo GitHub project that you just created in your github.com and go make sure where you want to clone your repository in your local drive. I would clone it in my desktop. Started cloning my demo GitHub in my desktop account, which would be a local repository now. Once it is done, I would go to my current repository to be demo GitHub, and you can see I am into my local current repository. That's demo GitHub. There's a couple of options in there. We will go through each of them later on as we walk through the project. There's a feature origin, there's current branches. You can we'll talk about the feature origin or any other options that's there later on as we walk through the project. Now let's go to the local drive where we cloned our repository. I cloned mine in desktop, and copy your Unity project folders into that folder, or your whole Unity project folder into the local repository folder where you created or cloned your repository. And then you'll see the .git ignore file. You might want to move that file into your Unity project folder where you copied to. So once you have done that, go to your Unity Hub and add your project, or open your project from that local disk and add your current demo GitHub folder that you copied into your local repository folder. Once you've done that, you'll see there's another project as well, which was your current or existing project in your local. You can remove that from your list so that you won't be confused, and you can open that demo GitHub file that you just created in your GitHub desktop repository. So as you can see, we have currently a plane, a cube for cube and plane. Now in your GitHub desktop, you can see all those changes in the changes window. That's all the initial file. What you want to do is type in a description, main branch, and commit to main. So once you commit to main, you push it to the origin. That means you are in your main branch right now in your GitHub desktop, and you post everything into your github.com repository. So now your github.com repository should, once you refresh that window, you should have the demo GitHub folder in that. So you copied every project or initial project from a local drive into your local repository and it pushed it into your github.com repository. Now let's say you want to make some changes here. If you added your sphere, you'll see that change in your GitHub desktop. And we'll look into like how to deal with these changes and then commit it to your main branch, or maybe we'll talk about the branches or how you collaborate with others using your GitHub desktop and GitHub in Unity in this example too. So let's say you want to collaborate, or you want your friend to work on adding a sphere into that project. Then you go to branch, create a branch, and let's say this sphere add test branch. For now, let's just leave my whatever changes I made in my main branch and switch the branches. Once you hit the switch branch, your sphere add test branch is created, and you might want to publish branch. So once it's published, you can go to Unity. So it wants you to reload, you can hit reload. So now you are in a sphere add test branch. So whatever changes you make here, let's say you added, or your friend is adding a sphere in that branch, you can see that change in the GitHub desktop, right? So we just added sphere. Let's just do another change. So let's just add another material. Let's say there's a sphere mat or material, and then hook it up to the sphere. Let's change the color. Let's change the color to somewhat grayish, or let's say it's a yellow. Yeah. So we made this change in our sphere add test branch, right? You can see we are currently in the sphere add test branch, and in GitHub desktop that changes would be reflected. But these changes, after you make these changes, you would want to commit this change, right? So let's say you can write a summary of like added sphere, added sphere, and let's say your sphere mat. You can also add in a description if you want. You commit to that branch. So once you commit to that branch, any changes you made will reflect in that branch, and you push that changes into the origin. So origin here is your github.com repository, right? This one. So you can see there's one branch over there. You post it. Now your changes has been reflected in. So if we switch to main branch and go to Unity, reload, you can see there's no any sphere. So all the changes that we made in that sphere add test branch remains in that branch. So it doesn't hamper your whole project. Your main branch is still safe. And if you think later on, change your mind that you don't need sphere, then you can discard those changes and then just keep working on your main branch. So yeah, let's go to main branch, reload. See, there's no any sphere in your main branch right now. So that's how you collaborate. Now let's say you are in your sphere add test branch. This is sphere, you added everything and you want to finalize it into your main branch. So you're happy with whatever changes your friends or you made in that branch, and you want to make it change. So this is where you create pull request. So once you click the create pull request, you can add in some description, say added something, a sphere, and I'll leave it this way, and then create a pull request. So you will see your pull request in the main origin. Once you get that pull request, you or your friend can merge that pull request. Let's say someone changed in that branch, and then you saw the pull request, you confirm that one, you think that's good, then you can merge your pull request and then confirm that merge. So what it does is whatever changes was done in that sphere add test branch will get merged in your main branch as well. And once you're there, you can delete that branch as well because you no longer need that branch. But for now, let's just keep it there. Yeah, you can see the commit. The commit was like added sphere and sphere mat, and you merged all those changes. So in your github.com repository, all your changes got merged into your main branch as well. So in your GitHub desktop, let's say you merge that one, you go to GitHub desktop, go to main branch. So the changes were merged in the origin, right? So there's no merge in, you cannot see it in your local changes. So what you want to do is fetch those changes from the origin. So hit that fetch origin, which I've already done. Once it is done, you should have an option of pull origin. So pull any merge or changes that you made in your github.com. It will reflect those changes from that sphere add test branch into your main branch now. So it is pulling those changes from origin right now. Once it is done, it's refreshing. Let's go to Unity, reload, see. So in your main branch, you can see that sphere and your sphere material, right? That view stats, because we made some changes, I think, in your main branch initially, and we changed that branch. So what it does is it just make those changes and keep it stashed. And for now, we would just discard those because we don't need those. But here you can see your changes that you made in sphere add test branch is now reflected in. So here's your sphere add test branch. You can change to main branch, and you can see that all the changes has been reflected. Now you can disregard that sphere change branch. Now let's do another example. Let's say you want another person to work on, let's say, adding a cylinder or something like that. Then you create a new branch. Let's call this branch cylinder add branch. Or yeah, it's better to put a hyphen or dash in between your words. So it's cylinder add branch, and you or your friend wants to work on this branch. You publish that branch, and then you say to your friend, or you or yourself want to work on this branch. It will not hamper your other branches, even your sphere add branches or your main branch. Once you publish that branch, you are currently in, make sure your current branch is cylinder add branch, right? So you are in cylinder add branch. Now you go to Unity, and let's say you want to add a cylinder here. So you change the transform, you want your cylinder to be somewhere here, okay? And you look around and you're happy with that one. Yeah, so if you go to GitHub desktop, let's go to Unity, save it. You go to GitHub desktop, you'll see those changes in your cylinder add branch. You commit that change into your cylinder add branch and then push that to your github.com repository. Once you do that, it should be reflected in your github.com repository as well. And say you're happy with your position of the cylinder. For now, let's see what it does in main branch. So in the main branch, if we switch to main branch, you should not see that cylinder, right? So you just made your changes in cylinder add branch. It was committed to only to cylinder add branch. So in your cylinder add branch, there's still a cylinder. Now if you're happy, or if your friend is happy with this change, you can create a pull request, and you can go to github.com. It opens, add some description, say you added something, updated, or let's say you added sphere. Why am I writing sphere right now? That's cylinder And yeah, you can leave a comment to a friend and create a pull request. Once you create a pull request, you can send a text to someone, or you'll get a notification, and then you can open the pull request, and you can also see the commits, what were the commits made in that branch. You go to you can also see the pull request. Yeah, see, so your pull request was about added cylinder. Once you're happy, you merge that, confirm merge. So once you do that, it will get merged into your main branch. So if you go back to GitHub desktop, go to main branch, and you just merged your pull request. You want to fetch it from the github.com to your local repository. You fetch origin. Once the fetching origin is done, it refreshes the repository, and then you can see there are 2 commits from the origin remote. You can pull that origin, because right now there's no any changes reflecting in the main branch. Once you pull that from origin, everything that was made in github.com will reflect in your local repository in your main branch. See, so you can now see the cylinder that you changed in your cylinder branch, and you can disregard both of those branches if you don't want to work with those branches right now. So that's how you work collaboratively in Unity and using GitHub.